Hello, it's me, Dr. Gleisner, and we're talking about four tests that you need to know in science, and they're quite interesting. They test for carbon dioxide, hydrogen, oxygen, and chlorine. And at the end of the video, I will give you a little quiz, basically. So let's talk about the first test. That's the test for, oopsie daisy. Okay, so the first test is for carbon dioxide. That is the test for CO2, in other words, and that is lime water. What you do is you take a test tube of lime water and you can blow bubbles into it. So, for example, if we were in a classroom environment, then I might do this for you. I would use a straw, and then I would blow into it. Because my breath contains carbon dioxide, among other things, over time it will become cloudy. And that's what you need to remember. Lime water goes from clear to cloudy for carbon dioxide. It only does that for carbon dioxide, not any of the other gases. Okay, so then we continue. This one is fun, and I do this a lot. It's the test for hydrogen, H2. So normally what I do is I give people a bit of magnesium, and then I add a little bit of dilute hydrochloric acid to that. That then makes a gas. You put your thumb over the opening of the test tube and you let the pressure build up. Then you take a lid splint, or a friend does that for you, and then you put the lid splint to the opening of the test tube, and then you get a squeaky pop explosion. So the hydrogen and the oxygen react together to make water. Okay, and again, I've just put that in there for completion's sake. You don't need to recall just for the test this equation. That gives you a squeaky pop explosion, and you have to obviously be able to trust your partner when doing this. So that is the squeaky pop. Sometimes you can see water condense on the test tube. The third test is for oxygen. Again, you put some oxygen that you possibly get out of a gas bottle. So you've got a gas bottle full of oxygen. There's usually a scale and a regulator on there. So that oxygen, and you get that into your test tube. And then you've got a stopper on there. You take the stopper away. You put a splint in there, not one that's burning. It's not like a lit splint like in the hydrogen test. It basically, you set fire to the splint and then you blow out the fire so that you've got embers there. So these are just embers. And then you basically put it into the test tube. And what happens is it relights a glowing splint. Oxygen relights a glowing splint. And that's the test for oxygen. It doesn't, of course, work with 20% oxygen in the air. You need a little bit more of a percentage. So if you suspect that a chemical reaction has produced oxygen, you trap it, and then you relight a glowing splint. Okay, fourthly and lastly, we've got chlorine. And chlorine, there's a reason why I don't tend to do that, or at least not let my students do that, because chlorine is, of course, toxic. And very much so. So this has to happen in a fume hood, where the any spillage is taken away. But basically what you do is you have a stopper over here initially, and you take the stopper away, and then you put some universal indicator paper in it. Now the universal indicator paper could also be litmus paper, it doesn't matter. It's colorful beforehand, and then what happens is it gets bleached. Because what chlorine does, it attaches itself to molecules, particularly those that have color in them, and it destroys those, and then they just become white. Chlorine used to be used for bleaching paper, but it's quite toxic, so it's just an accident waiting to happen. So in the second part of this video, I will take the whiteboard away, and what we will do is we will do a little quiz. Okay, So my little friend, Mr. Dinosaur, is going to ask you some questions. So you can do this in different ways. You can either write look at your notes that you may have made from the tests, or you can write down the gases and their respective tests as we're doing this. So I'm going to give you a random order, or rather Mr. Dinosaur is going to give you a random order of the tests, and then you can write the gas next to it. So the first one that we are going to do is, which one is that, Mr. Dinosaur? Well, let's go for the one that produces a squeaky pop explosion. Okay, which test produces a squeaky pop explosion? Okay, if you need more time to write it down, press the space bar to pause the video. Next one. What about the one that bleaches universal or indicator paper or litmus paper? Okay, the one that bleaches the litmus paper or the universal indicator paper. What about the one that relights a glowing splint? The one that relights a glowing splint. So you've had a splint, you have blown it out, now you've got the embers, and the gas relights the glowing splint. And finally, the last one turns from clear to cloudy. Write the name of that test down, please. So you heard Mr. Dinosaur, so you should have had them all now. And if you're not sure, you can, of course, go to the beginning of the video to look at that. Okay, so you've got the answers written down in an order. And what I would like you to do now is basically, Mr. Dinosaur is going to say a gas, and then you look at the test that you've just written down, and then you should be able to assign both the positive outcome and the substances that you need to test the gas with. Okay, so we're going to start off with what if I wanted to test for oxygen? What would I have to have? Okay, so have a look at your list, and you should find 2 of the bits of information that you need. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the solution. So next one. What if I wanted to test for hydrogen? What would I need? So you can write that down, or you can do it in your head. Hopefully you've written something down, but you don't have to. You know, always go over this again. What if I want to test for carbon dioxide? Which one is that? Okay. And finally, yes, Mr. Dinosaur, finally, what if I want to test for chlorine gas? Okay, so the last one is the test for chlorine gas. Okay, so here are the solutions. The first gas that we were talking about was oxygen, and you need a splint, and it needs to have embers on it. In other words, you set it alight, you blow it out, and then the oxygen relights the glowing splint. For the hydrogen gas, you need to light a splint, and you need to bring it to the test tube, and then if there's hydrogen in there, it will, with a burning splint, it will produce a squeaky pop explosion. Then the carbon dioxide, you put the carbon dioxide gas through a solution of limewater, and the limewater goes from clear to cloudy. And finally, the chlorine gas bleaches universal indicator or litmus paper, and you need to do that in a fume hood just for your safety and everybody else's safety. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that made a lot of sense, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye.